Hey there. Today I'd like to invite you to look through some old LPs with me. This is a little collection that we found. It's probably from the 70s or 80s. And it's a mix of classical music and some progressive rock albums and some very different things. So I thought we could sort this into two parts, into classical music and the other LPs. And I think they've been in storage for quite a while, so they're a little dusty. So let's just gently wipe these. Make sure they're a little cleaner. So here at the start we have old Bulgarian music. By choir master Alexander Koyuntyev. Hope that's how you pronounce it. And down here you have it in Cyrillic letters. And the funny thing is, this one actually is here twice. So maybe it was a very popular album at the time, or a personal favorite. So let's give the second one a little wipe too. And let's put these here to the right. Now the second album is by the Rolling Stones. This is an album called Still Life. It's an American concert from 1981. So that's from before my time. I do know a lot of the songs from the Rolling Stones, but I'm not too familiar with their entire back catalogue of albums. I think it's the first time that I've seen this one. Down here you have their familiar logo. And here of course are some of the songs that everyone knows. Let's Spend the Night Together or Satisfaction. So let's put these here to the left. Alright, then we have Roxy Music, an album called Flesh and Blood. And I've just noticed that this one is empty. So maybe we'll find the LP somewhere else. Or maybe not. Maybe it's gotten lost with time. Who knows, maybe it's still in the LP player from the last time it was played. I think the cover looks really good. I like this. Okay, so here's another famous band. A supergroup from the 70s, I think. Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. So it looks like they're somewhere in some southern place with these palm trees in the back. Maybe that's the ocean here in the background. I like this progression of shirts from closed to this one with the knot and the last one's open. Love beach. Oh yeah, here you see there by the sea, along the beach. This one's from 1978. Let's put it here with Roxy Music. Now this is an album that I've never seen before. I have to look it up. I think the band is called Yes and the album is called Fragile, but to be honest it could be the other way around. This too is a progressive rock band from that time. Right, so the band is called Yes. And it was recorded in London, September 1971. So I don't want to say the sad thing, but I think it's a bit unfortunate that the radio in Austria at some point just stopped playing these old songs and kind of started with songs from the 80s. And that's how it's been pretty much as long as I can remember. So I know a lot of songs from the 80s, but anything that's a bit older has been kind of absent from the radio. I do know this band though, that's Dire Straits. So this cover I think needs a bit more care. There's some blemishes here. You can see the corners a little torn. So I like to think that it's a sign that this was one of the favourite albums that's just been handled a lot because it was listened to so often that it was just picked up very often and moved around. This one's from 1978. And it was also recorded in London. And it has Sultans of Swing on it. That's the song I'm most familiar with from Dire Straits. So let's put these here. Okay, so this is interesting. Hasa setting the scene with this Indian cover. Very dramatic. These horses. Looks like a big battlefield here in the background. I'm not familiar with this at all. It was recorded in Sweden, interestingly. Korsnäsgård, Grödinge, Sweden. So we have here this vocal, organ, piano, bass guitar, conch shell, piano, horn, strings, bass, and santur. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce these. Karatalas, I'm not confident enough to even try. Soprano and tenor sax, drums, karatalas, and congas. I'm going to make a guess and put it over here. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know what this sounds like. And we have another one from Rasa, coming into full bloom with these roses here in yellow and red. And this idyllic scene in the middle, in the garden, by a spring. It has this little text here. It says, the vibrant reddish lotus unfolds and the full sound of rasa begins to bloom. Undisturbed by turbulent winds or waves, it lies tranquil upon the azure waters of the satisfied mind. The lotus rasa radiates an effulgence of pure transcendental sound energy to free wanderers from the maze of illusion. Some sip the sparkling waters and find nourishment, but the most fortunate bathe within the life-giving lotus lake, rasa floating into their hearts and coming into full bloom. So this certainly sounds like something from the 70s. I'll have to give it a listen when we're done with recording. I'm really curious about this. Alright, then. If you're from a German-speaking country, you probably know this man. He's called Otto Wildcats, and he's a comedian from North Germany. He was quite popular when I was younger, but I can't really remember anything that he did. But I think, yeah, this was popular too. You can see here, there's some stains on the cover, so it was probably out and used a lot. So it's not exactly progressive rock, but we're going to put it on this pile here. I think we're going to get to the classical albums a bit later. Here's an album that we also had at home. Jesus Christ Superstar. The original motion picture soundtrack album. There was one short period where I used to listen to a lot of musicals when I was something like 10 or so. I'm not really into musicals anymore, but I do still really like this one. I really like the movie too. I love the sets and the outfits. I mean, Judas just looks amazing. I really like this. Okay, so this is a little torn here in the corner. It's okay. These albums are all really quite old. They've been around for a while. They're allowed to look that way. Here we have Genesis. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So I basically grew up in the age of CDs. I mean, we had albums at home, but when I started collecting music, it was all CDs already. And sometimes I feel like you do miss out on some artwork on the covers because CDs are just so much smaller. And with these LPs, you could be so much more creative. You just had more space. So you have 3 different pictures with these connections here. This guy who just came out of the frame to look at what's going on over here. And you had a lot of space for text to tell a story, to give some additional information on everyone who was involved, to add some pictures. This one is from 1974. Let's put it here with Jesus Christ Superstar. Okay, here's another Genesis. Nursery Crime. This is a really disturbing cover. Very odd. It reminds me a bit of the Korn covers. It's quite strange. Let's give it a little wipe and put it away. Then we have another Yes album. This one's called Close to the Edge. I like this bright green. Here we see some of the new members. All with long hair. This is fitting for the time. And they played vocals, percussion, guitars, vocals, bass and vocals, and keyboard. And this album is also from 1973. Alright, here we have Ottoshank. Now, I don't know if he is well known in Germany. Could be. But he was an Austrian, I think, director and opera producer. So he was mostly active with classical music. And I think, I'm not sure if he sang too. There might be some albums. Here he says Sprecher, so speaker. And this is Vinzenz Chiavacci, Arbeiterweisen. And Vinzenz Chiavacci was born in 1847 in Vienna. He did some writing. He worked as a journalist and as a critic for theater plays. He wrote some humoristic tales. There's some books, some poems in dialect about Vienna. But I'm not familiar with him. But then it's not really an area where I listen to a lot of music or the recording, whatever this is. So I would say let's put this here. I'm not sure if it's a narration or music, but I think it fits better over here. Okay, then we just have a black folder, but I don't know where this goes or where the album has gone. So let's put this one aside. And let's continue with this one here. This is Ussr by Alban Berg. This is, I think it's an opera. And I know that Alban Berg was a very modern composer. I think he was a student of Schoenberg. And his music is atonal, so he doesn't use minor or major keys. I think it makes it a bit difficult to listen to, probably, or at least unusual. But Ussr is definitely something that people are familiar with. Okay, so this is a nice big box. It's probably black initially, but it's a little faded here. Don't know if this is all dust. Let's just open it for a second. Okay, so here we have the libretto, the text, in German, English and French. And here are the LPs. Okay, so this goes away here. So here we have another nice box. Porgy and Bess. Ella Fitzgerald and Louise Armstrong, and the orchestra is conducted by Russell Garcia. So, Porgy and Bess is an American opera, and Ella Fitzgerald and Louise Armstrong recorded some of the music from it. this one here is very famous, Summertime. I think I've heard some of the other ones too, but I wouldn't be able to tell right now. I definitely know Summertime though. Right, let's place this here. Here we have an album that looks a little bit like a newspaper. So this is probably from a series that was brought out by the label. It's called Klassik Auslese. Meisterwerke der Musik in berühmten Aufnahmen großer Interpreten. So masterpieces of music. And this one is Stravinsky, Feuervogel. I think it's called the Firebird Soup. And it was recorded by Bernstein and the New York Philharmonic. I think Stravinsky is also not easy to listen to. But my mom had the Firebird Soup at home, and I heard it a couple times when I was quite young. So I think it makes it easier when you just hear it a couple of times, and it's just there and you just become familiar with it. It's often easier when you're younger. Alright, here we have Beethoven, Klavierkonzerte, Piano Concerto Number 1 in C major by the Berliner Philharmoniker with Herbert von Karajan. Again with all the information in German, English, and French. Let's see if we can find a year. So it's printed in Germany, manufactured in Hamburg, some names of production, recording engineer. But we don't have a year. It's alright. Right, next we have some Wagner. We have it once with Latin letters and once in Cyrillic. Wagner. The conductor here is Yevgeny Svetlanov. That's overtures and symphonic excerpts from operas. So here we have 1981. It was made in USSR. Let's give it a little white. And you see here that instead of German, English, and French, we have Russian and English. It goes over here with Beethoven. Right here we have another beautiful cover. Ella Fitzgerald, the birthday concert. Ella in Rome. let's see, it says here, Ella at her peak in live performance, recorded on her 40th birthday, April 25th, 1958. And it cost $280, but I'm not sure which currency. Maybe this was old shilling if it was bought in Austria. But since everything is in English, could be that it was bought somewhere else. It says made in Hungary, but it's from the US. Okay, so this could go either way, but I think she sings I Love You, Porgy. So that's probably from Porgy and Bess, so let's place it here with the opera. Okay, here we have another Austrian singer and composer, Georg Kreisler. Vorletzte Lieder, second to last songs. Again, with the cover being a little torn. I'm not familiar with him, but I looked up his name and I think he was most active and most famous in the around the 60s, so a little before my time. Let's give it a little vibe. Let's put it here, but I think it could go either way. Okay, here we have Bartók, Sonata for 2 pianos and percussion. So this is a very dramatic text on the back. Let's read a little bit. It says, in Mozart's day, a percussionist had an easy job. In the loud parts of a symphony or opera, he pounded on the accurately tuned calfskins of 2 cattle drums. And if things were particularly complicated, as in the overture to the Entführung aus dem Serail, for example, he might at times sound the big drum, the cymbals, or the triangle. In our century, specialization has not only overtaken scholars and technicians, the percussionist has also had much to learn, at least in Bartók's Sonata for 2 pianos and percussion, which was composed in 1937. In the first place, the reservoir of instruments has grown significantly. Bartók required 3 cattle drums, xylophone, 2 small drums, 4 different cymbals, bass drum, triangle, and tom-tom. In the second place, he prescribed a particular manner in which this battery was to be used. For the cymbals alone, he specified, apart from the usual clashing together of the metal plates, the following. Striking with the stick of the kettle drum, with the heavy end of a drumstick, with a thin wooden wand, with the blade of a pocket knife or something similar. Also, the striking point on a cymbal was precisely indicated, the rim or the curve. In the third place, he determined the positioning of the 4 performers, the true percussion instruments in the center, dividing the pianos, placed obliquely facing each other. In spite of the massed percussion and hammers striking strings also qualify the piano as a percussion instrument, there is never an impression of sheer unbridled noise or an attempt to shock the listener. It is a remarkable and striking circumstance that Bartók achieved contrasting moods and atmospheres within the hard, even harsh sound scene and the mainly cerebral compositional technique. So it was really hard being a percussionist playing Bartók. I really like this kind of language. It sounds so dramatic. Okay, here we have something very different. This is called Liederspielplatz mit Kindern der Musikschule Friedrichshain und Siegfried Uhlenbrock. So these are probably songs for children, performed by children. And I really love their outfits with these little flower crowns or just flower hats. Here's a big mushroom hat. This is really cute. It's from 1983. But I have to say, if these are songs, then I don't know any of these. Obviously, Rotkäppchen und der Wolf is a famous fairy tale, but I don't know any of these other titles. It could be that this is from East Germany, or maybe they just sang different children's songs to where I grew up. I don't think this goes on either side, really. But let's put it here for now. Here we have a very futuristic cover. It's the Alan Parsons Project. And the album is called I, Robot. So Alan Parsons might be familiar as a producer. Might have heard the name. I think he was involved with recording Pink Floyd. I think also the Beatles, so some very, very famous albums. I think I've heard some music from this project too. So, wouldn't be able to name any songs right now. Right, here we have an album that we've already had with a different cover. This time we have highlights from the score of the rock opera by Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, Jesus Christ Superstar. It's probably a different cast. I think we have it over here. Here we have a conductor on the cover. It says Respighi, Vini di Roma and Feste Romane for the Cleveland Orchestra. Recorded in 1976 in the Masonic Hall in Cleveland in the USA. And again we have 3 different languages. We have English, French and German. And I hadn't heard of Respighi. It says here, the Italian Torino Respighi lived from 1879 to 1936. Characteristic figure of substance among the French Impressionists, is the only symphonist to have gained recognition and a permanent place in the 20th century Italian repertoire. And he has a varied list of works like 8 operas, 3 ballets, a mystery play, many orchestral and chamber music pieces, concertos and songs. But he's most famous for these 3 symphonic poems which have been accepted in the international repertoire: Le Fontane di Roma, I Pini di Roma, and Le Feste Romane. And in this trilogy, he interestingly evokes past and present glories of Rome. He was originally from Bologna, but adopted Rome as his city. Alright, so I think we have 3 more albums. Here we have Tchaikovsky, again in Cyrillic and Latin letters, Concerto for Violin and Orchestra in D major. With the description in Russian and English. Here we have, I think, a really beautiful cover. This is Sergei Rachmaninoff, Vespers, with the Ussr Academic Russian Choir. And it looks really new compared to all the other covers. So maybe this was a later purchase. But it says made in the USSR, so it has to be quite old too. It's just a really, really beautiful photo. I like this very much. And again with detailed descriptions in English and in Russian. So that's great. If you know one of these languages and are learning the other, you can compare the translations. So let's place Rachmaninoff here. Alright, okay, there's 2 more. So here we have George Gershwin, An American in Paris, Porgy and Bess, Suite from the Opera, in English and again in Russian. Amerikanец в Париже. Again, it's the USSR Academic Symphony Orchestra. And I've just noticed in Cyrillic it says Porky Ibis. So maybe I've mispronounced this the whole video, in which case I'm sorry. Porky and Bess. Alright, and here we have the final album that we're looking at today. I think this one's been around for a while too. This is Rick Wakeman, The 6 Wives of Henry VIII. And when we open it, it says here, this album is based around my interpretations of the musical characteristics of the wives of Henry VIII. Although the style may not always be in keeping with their individual history, it is my personal conception of their characters in relation to keyboard instruments. Rick. So that's a really interesting concept for an album. You can see here in this photo the different keyboards that he used. The RMI electric piano and harpsichord, a custom-built Hammond C3 organ, a Steinway grand piano. He we have a frequency counter and a custom mixer, a mini Moog synthesizer, and so on. And on the back, we have the 6 wives. Catherine of Aragon, which is track 1. Anne of Cleves, track 2. Catherine Howard, track 3. And then up here, Jean Seymour, track 4. Anne Boleyn, track 5. And Catherine Parr, track 6. So let's just give this a little wipe. So I think my brush needs some cleaning now too. It's a little darker. We can put this, pretty sure we can put this over here with the folk rock stuff of the 1970s. Alright, so there we go. I think that's quite an interesting collection. I'm gonna look up some of these composers. Curious to hear what the albums sound like. I hope that you enjoyed going through these with me. And if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see or that you'd like me to try, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. So for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you again next time.